Hey everyone, how's it going? Aaron Rift here from NoDQ.com. This is the NoDQ live recap of AEW Dynamite for August the 18th, 2021. We got Rampage this coming Friday in Chicago. We had some matches set up for Rampage. We had a match set up for the All Out pay-per-view. We had a fairly memorable show overall, so let's get right down to it. We were in Houston, Texas for this episode of Dynamite. We kicked it off with Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston coming to the ring, but they were jumped from behind by 2.0, formerly Everrise in WWE, along with Daniel Garcia. 2.0 cut a promo on Sting and Darby Allin, basically calling them out right there on the spot for a tag team match. The lights went out, Sting made his appearance, and then Darby showed up in the ring from behind, Attack 2.0, and we had our match. It was Texas Tornado rules, so they were fighting all over the place. They quickly went into the concession area, and then they fought through the crowd. Darby ended up jumping off the top of a platform, and then Eddie Kingston finally returned, got into the fight, and then 2.0, they suplexed Darby onto his own skateboard. Crowd was chanting, "We want tables." There were tables brought into the mix. Sting ended up being powerbombed on a table, but Sting basically no-sold it. He popped right back up, and he ended up hitting a double Scorpion Death Drop to 2.0, and then he put on a double Scorpion Deathlock, putting both guys in the submission hold, and he got a double tap out. Big win here for Sting and Darby Allin, and this was noteworthy because it was Sting's first match on TNT in 20 years. Since the final episode of Monday Nitro, March 26th, 2001. Hell of a way to open up the show. Sting looked good, they protected him, and Darby did the big spot coming off of the platform and got suplexed on the skateboard. Sting just basically got punched a little bit, and then Sting did take the table bump, but popped right back up. The old Sting was back to his old self and took care of business. So nice way to open up the show with this match. And then we had footage shown from right before Dynamite went on the air. Sammy Guevara proposed to his longtime girlfriend. She accepted. And then we had a promo from Shawn Spears, who was going to be facing Sammy Guevara. And he took a little bit of a cheap shot by saying that he'll let Sammy's fiance Pam be part of the Pinnacle for just one night, and for that one night, she can be on top. We then had Sammy Guevara making his entrance for the match, and Shawn Spears attempted to attack Sammy from behind, but Sammy caught him. They brawled on the outside of the ring for a while, and then Tully Blanchard got involved. Shawn and Tully spike pile-drived Sammy on the outside of the ring. Sammy was thrown back into the ring, and the bell finally rang to start the match. So basically, they could get away with that, the double team, because the match technically had not started. But they tried to do it a second time, and the referee quickly kicked Tully out of the ringside area. And then a bridge was set up using one of the ringside barricades. It was placed next to the ring and the other barricade, and the match continued with these two. At one point, they both were on the top rope, and Shawn Spears gave him a middle finger. Sammy responded with a super cutter off the top, which Spears was able to kick out of, and then Spears hit an avalanche C4, which Sammy kicked out of. Then they both ended up on the apron. You knew that the barricade was going to come into play. And sure enough, Sammy gave Spears a DVD onto the barricade, got him back in the ring, hit a 630, and Spears somehow kicked out of that. So then Sammy had to finish him off, and he hit several knee strikes, hit the GTH, and picked up the win. And Spears was bleeding. Something happened to him at some point during the match. There was blood all over the place. Sammy had blood covered on his body. It was a pretty crazy match. Fun stuff here from these guys. Crowd was crazy into Sammy Guevara, as you might expect in Texas. Congratulations to him and his fiance. Maud W says, great match that didn't need to be this good. Agree on that. And thank you guys for tuning in. And if you're enjoying this live recap, please do me a favor. Click the like button on the YouTube page and leave a comment. Let me know your thoughts on the show. And of course, please spread the word. Share a link to this video on social media. Anybody you know who watches wrestling, have them check this out. Marshall Leonard says, Dynamite did it again. Loved every second of it. We had Christian, the new Impact Wrestling World Champion, backstage. He was interviewed, but he was quickly interrupted by Don Callis. And Christian basically said that Callis is not in his head. And at All Out, he will take the AEW title next from Kenny Omega. And then he finished off by calling Callis a carny piece of shit, which I believe that's what he said last week. We then had a quick interview video package from Dante Martin, who had a really impressive showing on Rampage last week. And he just basically said he's young, but he's going to rise up in the ranks. We then had Dan Lambert, who was on the Miami show about 6 weeks ago. And he just cut a promo on AEW and the fans, saying AEW has jumped aboard the cancel culture train. And he had 2 MMA guys with him. And he said AEW is not the answer to the wrestling fans' prayers. He said the roster is full of a bunch of loudmouthed wannabe tough guys. And then Lance Archer arrived, and he was jumped from behind by Scorpio Sky and Ethan Page. So 3 segments on this show, and we had the heels attempting, and 2 of the times they were successful, jumping people from behind. Maybe a little bit overkill. James with a $2 super chat says, glad there's no Forrest Gump moment tonight. That's a reference to the SummerSlam predictions video where Steve-O was having some technical difficulties. But thank you for that, James. We very much enjoyed that video you posted on Twitter. If you guys haven't seen it, head over to twitter.com/AaronRift and check out that video that I retweeted. We had, excuse me, losing my voice here a little bit. We had Chris Jericho interviewed about the labors of Jericho and said that he went through hell, but now he gets the ultimate prize. He doesn't have Judas as far as the music goes for his entrance, but he has the momentum, and he's going to have 5,000 friends of Jericho that will sing him to the ring. We then had the AEW Tag Team Titles match, Jurassic Express versus the Young Bucks with the Elite. And this was a pretty crazy match, as you would expect, back and forth for a while, and then the Bucks got the upper hand. Eventually, Luchasaurus got the hot tag, and then Brandon Cutler got on the apron. Luchasaurus was able to take care of Cutler and then hit a double choke slam, but they were not able to put away Matt Jackson. The Bucks then hit the Indie Taker, which Jungle Boy was able to kick out of. Then we had Kenny Omega, who was wearing a Chick Magnet t-shirt. Now, keep in mind, the other week he was wearing a Cookie Monster t-shirt. Hint, hint. Omega ran down and attacked Marco Stunt with a chair. Christian then speared Omega. Jungle Boy hit a brain buster using a chair that was brought into the ring by the Elite, but Nick was able to make the save. And then the Good Brothers and the rest of the Elite guys, Nakazawa, Cutler, they all got on the apron. Jungle Boy and Lucha were able to take them out, but eventually the numbers game just caught up with them. Double BTE trigger on Jungle Boy, and they scored the pinfall victory. Pretty much every Young Bucks title match as of late with all the interference. It was a really fun match, but it's becoming a predictable pattern with them. And also, speaking of predictable patterns, Jungle Boy taking the fall again, which I'm fine with. But, you know, the Lucha Express, they lose quite a bit, and it's always Jungle Boy taking the fall. Not that I want to see Luchasaurus taking any falls, but at some point you got to have the Lucha Express win the big one. Now, there is more to this. Maybe they will win the big one. We'll get to that in a few minutes here. Good match, but again, they're kind of overdoing it with all the interference. Like, I said this with Roman Reigns and with Kenny Omega. If you're the cowardly heel, then that's fine to have the interference. But when it starts happening every single match, it gets a little old. Every once in a while, I want to see the heels win clean, so they actually have a claim to holding the titles, instead of where it's becoming with every heel act, whether it's WWE or AEW, they're always winning by cheating, like every single time. It's just becoming a little bit overkill. So if I had to nitpick, I would say maybe the Bucks should be winning some matches clean as far as tag team title defenses go. Anyways, after the match was over, Christian was attacked, brought into the ring, and then Omega hit the one-winged angel on Christian, and Don Callis made the pin. So yeah, Christian was taken out, and we'll see if maybe Christian can get some backup heading into the All Out pay-per-view. We had a backstage promo from Britt Baker. She introduced Jamie Hayter as her new backup, and a challenge was made. Jamie versus Chris Statlander coming up on next week's show. We also had a Matt Hardy, Orange Cassidy video package. They're building up a few now. We then had an in-ring interview with Paul White. Tony Schiavone interviewing Paul White. White just said it's amazing to be back in the ring. He had a big announcement, but it was quickly interrupted by QT Marshall. QT used the old Houston, we have a problem. He was starting to get some what chants from the fans, and he had to take a shot at WWE, said in AEW, they don't build up anticipation just to let the fans down, and said that there's a reason why Tony Khan hired White as an announcer, because much like his 4 decades in wrestling, Paul White is a disappointment. And QT showed some photos, x-rays, a photo of his scar, Paul White's scar from his hip surgery. Mentioned that he had 5 operations, and White said that he had a talk with Tony Khan, and his big announcement is that he will be wrestling at All Out, and his opponent will be QT Marshall. So there you go. Paul White officially getting back in the ring. First AEW in-ring action coming up at the All Out pay-per-view. And we had a match set up for Rampage. Jade Cargill challenged Kiera Hogan, formerly of Impact Wrestling, for a match on Rampage. Then we had the Elite backstage for an interview. And it was announced by Tony Schiavone that there will be an eliminator tournament. Varsity Blondes, Lucha Brothers, Jurassic Express, and Private Party. The winning team will get the Young Bucks inside a steel cage coming up at the All Out pay-per-view. Ryan says Paul White was hilarious tonight. Most I've enjoyed his segment in a long time. And Justin S. says the crowd was fire tonight in Texas. Yes, they were. They were a hot crowd, as most AEW crowds have been since the company started. Interesting that they're doing the Eliminator tournament in the cage. Now, for AEW, I feel like the cage match will actually have a clean finish on pay-per-view. So I'm looking forward to that. Will Jurassic Express get their rematch and maybe win the titles, or will the Lucha Brothers face the Young Bucks inside a cage? Those two teams had a ladder match 2 years ago, so maybe we'll see their feud rekindled. But yeah, that should be interesting to see what happens there, and maybe we'll get new tag team champions. Marshall Leonard says Paul White was good, but we need more of him every week. Well, it looks like now that he's actually going to be in a storyline, we will see him get more TV time and doing more things. We had another in-ring segment, which was kind of interesting that they did 2 back-to-back in-ring promo segments. We had Taz in the ring with Hook. He brought out Ricky Starks, and Ricky was totally in Rock 2000, or not 2000. Wow, it's even further back than that. 1998 Rock mode with the vest and the title around his shoulder and the sunglasses, same haircut, same style of promo. Like, he was totally doing the Rock circa 1998 in the Nation. And he wanted to talk with Brian Cage, but then backstage we saw that Will Hobbs had attacked Cage, but Cage was able to fight off Hobbs. We then had another backstage promo with Pac, and he was confronted by Andrade. Andrade handed them some papers. Basically, Andrade has some conditions for this match at All Out. And then Chavo Guerrero, who's the mouthpiece for Andrade, talked about the Eliminator tournament and said that even if the Lucha Brothers win the tournament, they will never be champions with a boss like Pac. So yeah, I'm wondering if it's going to be Jurassic Express getting the opportunity, but we'll see. We'll see if Lucha Brothers get it, or I would be very surprised if it was Varsity Blondes getting the opportunity, and I don't think it's going to be Private Party. We had Penelope Ford versus Thunder Rosa, and this was in the usual 9:20 to 9:30 slot for the women. Big pop for Thunder Rosa. The crowd just loves her. She's got a lot of potential here to be the top star in AEW. And maybe at some point we'll see her versus Britt Baker for the title, a big rematch from earlier this year. Pretty decent match here. Ford hit a cutter on the outside, got the advantage for a while. She put on a submission, which Rosa was able to counter out of. Rosa hit the DVD, but Ford kicked out, and then Rosa was finally able to get on a submission, and Ford tapped out, giving Rosa the victory here. We had a backstage interview with Arn Anderson and Brock, not Lesnar, Brock Anderson. And next week it's going to be Brock Anderson versus Malachi Black. And Arn was very concerned. He did not want this match happening, but Brock was insistent on it, said that they're not going to air their dirty laundry. He's going to take the match. It's signed. There's no backing out. He's doing it. So nice knowing you, Brock Anderson. It's going to be a massacre, to say the least, next week. Ryan says Brock Anderson looks 45. Yeah, he definitely is Arn Anderson's son. I think there's no question about that. We had another video package with Miro coming off of his win against Fuego del Sol on Rampage. Moxley cut a promo. Moxley has a match with Daniel Garcia on this Friday's Rampage at the United Center and said everyone wants a piece of AEW. He carried the world title throughout the pandemic, waved the flag of the company through the uncertain times, and now this Daniel Garcia kid wants a taste of the main event. And well, Moxley's going to give it to him and show everybody why he's still the top dog in AEW. We then had our main event of the evening, Chris Jericho versus MJF. Jericho finally getting his match. Now, AEW on social media throughout the last several days, they actually published the lyrics of Chris Jericho's song, obviously trying to get the fans to chant Judas and sing Judas for Jericho's entrance, since the stipulation was that Jericho could not use the Judas effect and he could not have his music for his entrance. But the fans did, in fact, sing the entire song. And I was wondering if they would be able to pull it off, but they did. Everybody was in sync together for the most part. And it was pretty cool. Like, when's the last time you had somebody make a wrestling entrance with the entire crowd singing the song and no music whatsoever? Like, I don't think it's ever happened, at least on a major stage like AEW or WWE or WCW or anything like that. So this was pretty awesome. Crowd was really hot for this. MJF sucks chants. MJF took a page out of Jericho's playbook. He grabbed the camera and was filming the fans while giving them the middle finger. He flipped everybody off, and then Jericho punched MJF. MJF fell. Jericho actually flipped off MJF, who was lying on the ground, and then they got back in the ring. MJF went after the bad arm, got the upper hand for a while, took off the brace. Jericho eventually made a comeback, hit his 10 punches in the corner, and then hit a Hurricane Rana. They traded blows for a while. MJF hit the heat seeker, but Jericho was able to kick out of that. MJF grabbed the referee and hit a low blow when she was distracted. MJF put the Lion Tamer on Jericho. Jericho's own move, but Jericho was able to get to the ropes. And then MJF grabbed his Dynamite diamond ring, was going to use it, but the referee stopped him. And when she was grabbing the ring, she was distracted. Jericho used Floyd on MJF, hit him in the gut, and then he went for the Judas effect, but stopped himself. This was shades of Shawn Michaels versus Randy Orton from Survivor Series 2007, when Shawn was going for the super kick, but he stopped because he couldn't use it in the match. And in that moment of hesitation, Randy Orton took advantage. The only thing here that didn't make sense was that the referee was distracted. The referee's back was turned, and Jericho still stopped himself. So that was a little weird. I think maybe there was a miscue there. Maybe the referee was supposed to turn around and Jericho stopped himself. But yeah, he stopped himself, and MJF took advantage of that and then put on the Salts of the Earth arm submission. MJF actually hit a Judas effect on Jericho, put on the submission. Jericho made a last-ditch effort to try to beat MJF, try to roll him up, but was unsuccessful, and MJF got the submission back on, and Chris Jericho tapped out to MJF, and that was a great finish, other than the whole thing with Jericho stopping himself when the referee wasn't looking. But other than that, really fun match, enjoyed it. Love seeing MJF get the submission win. And I hope on Friday they should start Rampage. I don't know if they're going to do this or not, but they should start Rampage with Cult of Personality. But instead of CM Punk, it's MJF that comes to the ring. Imagine the heat for that. Like, that would be epic. If AEW does that, I will pop very huge for that. MJF should totally come out to Cult of Personality and just cut a promo and say, were you guys expecting somebody else? Like, I would love that. And then, of course, you could have CM Punk show up, or, they're probably doing something with Darby Allin. But I'd love to see MJF be the one that comes out to Cult of Personality to get that heel heat in Chicago before CM Punk actually does show up. So all in all, another good Dynamite this week. I enjoyed it very much. The crowd in Houston definitely brought it. They brought the energy. They really add to the show. I'm going to give it a B+. Really fun show overall. They built up Rampage. They built up All Out. They got a lot of people TV time, whether it was little video packages or backstage promos. The only segment that I thought maybe dragged a little bit was that Paul White interview with QT Marshall. I thought it maybe went a little long. They could have gone to the point quicker. But all in all, very good show from AEW as always. Ryan gives it an A. Michael Wayne, MVP Kev, give it a B. Nick Glavin gives it a B+. And then Curtis Butler gives it a B as well. And yeah, Justin S. says here, after the way the show ended, it's real hard not to think Punk is going to confront a gloating MJF. Yeah, the thing is, though, they did talk about Darby Allin calling out the so-called best in the world. So I'm still wondering if they're going to do something with CM Punk and Darby. But, you know, maybe Darby comes out and challenges MJF to a match, and then that's when CM Punk shows up. But they already have 3 matches announced for Rampage. So really curious to see how all this plays out on Friday. Make sure you guys tune in for that. I will be recapping both SmackDown and Rampage on Friday. I think I'll talk about Rampage first because of the impending big news. But yeah, that's going to be a huge stream on Friday. I hope you guys tune in for that. And of course, we got the No DQ review. Detective Mocha sent in a $2 super chat, says, I'm scared of no Punk. They already have 3 matches. Well, they're basically enhancement matches, like John Moxley versus Daniel Garcia. That's not going to go very long. Jade Cargill is in a match against Kiera Hogan. That's not going to go very long. I suspect the matches will be relatively short, and then they're going to do whatever they're doing with CM Punk and Darby Allin, MJF, whatever they end up doing. But yeah, I was thinking that they would have announced bigger profile matches for this show, but I guess they're really relying on the hype surrounding CM Punk, and that's going to draw the big number. They don't need to load up the card. But anyways, guys, that was Dynamite. I will see you guys for the Rampage recap on Friday night. Thank you all so much for tuning in as always. And again, make sure you give the video a like, spread the word, tell a friend. Stay tuned to NoDQ.com for the very latest. And I will see you all next time.